Welcome to the Bucket Plan on Demand, a podcast for financial advisors based on the best-selling book and process that simplifies financial planning. Hear from skilled industry professionals and special guests each episode that will help perfect your approach with clients and your results.
Hello, I'm Dave Alison, host of today's episode of the Bucket Plan on Demand podcast. Recently, I had a conversation with Jamie Hopkins, CEO of Bryn Capital Management and WSFS Bank, where we discussed what sets top advisory firms apart: exceptional service. We had so much to talk about that we divided our talk into two parts. In today's episode, we explore how creating standout client experiences can become your firm's most powerful growth driver. From meaningful milestone celebrations to team empowerment and scalable service systems, you'll walk away with tangible ideas to elevate every client interaction. We hope you enjoy. Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Bucket Plan on Demand. Today, I've got a guest who probably needs no introduction, particularly in our circles here. We've got Jamie Hopkins. Jamie is the CEO of Bryn Capital Management, as well as for WSFS Bank. Do you guys call it WSFS also, Jamie, internally?
We do, yeah. It's actually, it got abbreviated at WSFS, and then everybody just started calling it WSFS, and we've actually steered into it. So we have a WSFS lounge in Philadelphia now too, like a coffee little thing on 1818 Market Street. So yeah, it's I think at first people didn't like it, but then you just gave up and you said, yeah, it's WSFS,
Exactly. Well, you guys are working with C2P and helping us with some lending solutions. And I think the first time Bill was like, yeah, we got all the term stuff from WSFS. I was like, who is that? He was like, oh, it's Jamie's company. So I like it. WSFS. Of course, in addition to that, he's also the founder and president of FinServe Foundation, a nonprofit focused on advancing the next generation of financial professionals. He's also a nationally recognized retirement expert, author, and educator. Jamie co-created the RICP designation and wrote the Wall Street Journal best-selling book, Find Your Freedom. So, Jamie, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. And yeah, I did some of those things, so that's good.
Well, Jamie, before we get started, give us the 30,000-foot view of FinServe Foundation and kind of your involvement there and what that does for our industry.
Yeah, so I love FinServe Foundation. It's definitely my passion, piece of my life as it relates to this industry. And, kind of brainstormed that up back in 2018 with a couple of other people in the industry, Dr. Craig Lemoyne, who's at University of Illinois, Dr. Preston Cherry. He's got his own wealth firm and is at University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, leads up the planning program there. And what we decided to do is build a nonprofit and bridge program for college students looking to enter financial services as a profession and give them mentorship, coaching, and access. All three things that are backed in kind of research-based success metrics that help people be more successful in any profession, but especially this profession. So it's a 2-year fellowship program, and we just passed or right around our 700th student that has gone into the FinServe Fellowship. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. We work with about 42 colleges and universities. And it's really pretty awesome. And we always need new mentors. We always need new donors and to work with these young professionals and make them successful in the industry. We got to work with, one person that's now joined, your team a bit. And she was with me at Invest in Women just a little bit ago and said that the conference stuff really changed her confidence, that she didn't view herself as an outgoing person that could just sit down and talk with somebody. And that's what she said. That's been the biggest thing, is just being forced into those situations and then being in a safe area with other students and professionals guiding you. It's really given her that confidence, which was super cool to kind of see and be around.
Yeah, it's an amazing program. I mean, I know, coming as somebody that graduated with a degree in finance, always wanted to go into the financial services industry, there was really no path, right? For me, it was like, go get a job at an insurance company and try to sell all your friends and family whole life, or go get a job at an investment company and try to cold call your friends and family and get them to do, investments with you. And so, what you guys are doing and giving people a path and mentorship and confidence and resources and connections is awesome.
Yeah, it really is, and it's just needed. One of the interesting things, it's a fully volunteer organization, so we have a little over 200 industry professionals that have volunteer or volunteer time with us. But I think one thing that's been eye-opening for people is that they're always like, "Oh, we go to all these conferences, everybody talks about it." And then they're shocked to find out that very few companies are really doing something in this space today. Even funding for it, companies don't put much money behind it. So it's a really interesting thing because almost every trade publication you read, every conference you go, there's a panel of people talking about G2 advisors. And then you pull, the lid back on most of these organizations and nobody's really doing much. And so it's definitely something we talk a lot about as an industry. But when you get down to it, there's only a couple organizations doing much really. To be honest, CFP board's done a great job expanding and helping universities grow these programs. That's probably been the best thing that's happened over the last decade. But as you kind of get out further from that, especially the traditional wealth companies, there's just not much there. I mean, people are still all focused on recruiting senior advisors and advisor teams back and forth, and just not enough focus on growing up this next generation, putting them in a good spot and training them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's talk about a little bit before we get into kind of the topic today, which is why exceptional service is the future of wealth management. And, speaking of future, it's bringing in the right people and getting them involved as you're doing right now with wealth management firms, RIAs, and a path towards mentorship and apprenticeship. But tell us a little bit about Bryn Mawr. You've been there for what, 2 years now?
Yeah, this is my second year here. I love it. It's been really, really fun. It's a little bit different of an organization. I mean, you know more of my background. We've known each other for a while, but I've gotten to work in really interesting places and kind of more of a true just RIA growth minded environment. And then came over to Bryn Mawr Trust and WSFS and get to lead up our combined wealth teams over here. But the interesting part is I've gotten to kind of flex and learn a lot about the banking world, the trust world. Now, I'm an attorney by nature, and actually up behind me somewhere is a trust and estate award I got for the top performer in law school on trust and estates. But, honestly, that's a piece of paper on the wall. It's different being involved with we actually have two different trust companies here that I get to oversee. And it's very different, right? Being involved in that level of it and running the trust organizations versus kind of helping, navigate it from a client or even advisor perspective. But one of the things that I saw before I came over here was the challenges with working with the trust world as advisors and RIAs. My previous firm, when I was at Carson Group, we launched something. It really didn't work well for us. And so we ended up picking a new partner and retrying it again. And I'd say, this whole estate planning side of the wealth world is just starting to come to fruition. The kind of estate technology and solutions out there from Trust and Will, Vanilla, Wealth.com that I'm involved with too. And I believe C2P, had a relationship and started to roll that out. But that's all just getting here, right? We're still on like the, very beginning stages of that. I think in the next 2 years, we're going to see more wealth firms incorporate the estate planning with the trusts into their firms. Larger firms, historically, the Goldman Sachs and Chases, they've gone out and purchased trust companies and wrapped them into their offering. But more of the RIA wealth space is going to start entering that. So you're either going to, partner or buy, really. Maybe some people will try the true build up from the ground, but I think that's a challenging road to go, especially when you look at some of the requirements. Like in the state of Delaware, to get a Delaware charter, you actually need assets that more similarly look like a bank to even get a charter. So it's not a market you can hop into easily. Nevada has, I think, $1 million of cash that you have to hold to start the company. A lot of RIAs aren't going to approach it that way. So it could be a challenge to enter that. So I think most people are either going to buy existing, and there's going to be fewer and fewer of those, or build out something themselves. So we've really leaned into that the last 2 years and have started to build these partnerships with RIAs to deliver these trust services.
Yeah, I know it's something we're excited about both. You, as you mentioned, you introduced wealth.com, and, I love that platform to get some of the core trust and estate planning documents in the hands of our, more mass affluent, middle class millionaire clients, the people that have typically neglected getting those core documents. And then, as we all know, when we're dealing with more high net worth, ultra high net worth, maybe clients that have more complexity around their trust and their estate or estate taxes. I know, at C2P and Prosperity Capital, we're setting up a relationship with you guys to be able to tap into some of the expertise that you bring there, which I think as you want to continue to compete in the high net worth and ultra high net worth space, you have to have those resources. To your point, the big firms, the Goldmans of the world, they've had it for a while. And your firm's allowing firms like ours at Prosperity Capital to compete at that level and earn those types of clients.
Yeah, and it's a good tie to what we're going to talk about today, right? Like if you want to deliver the service that people are looking for at that space, right? You need to have those types of solutions, right? From insurance to bill pay one day to the estate planning, the trust, the lending. And that's why at the upper end, right, where you've seen the family offices that have scaled and the Goldmans, right? They've brought those solutions together because that's the service that those clients are looking for.
Yeah, it's something we've always framed as just trying to tailor that family office experience to those types of clients who have, traditionally not had access to things like that. So, everything that we talk about goes into exceptional service and client experience. I mean, Jamie, I know you've spoken on the impact of I think it's Gadara, right? His message on service and what it means to you. Can you just provide some context on that message and what specifically resonated with you? And also, how do you see that translating into the financial services industry?
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to watch him speak, and I had seen some of his things just honestly pop up on social media before, but really had never seen his full story and him explain it. And I sat there and watched him talk, and I was like, it really resonated with me. It just kind of like hit me. And every once in a while, you're just in the right frame of mind, right context, and everything kind of clicks. And it really did for me that day. It's the most inspired I've been from a speaker in probably 10 years. So he had, well, for some people have seen the show, the Bear, which is a pretty popular show right now. I think that was FX, but has the food and his background was he was running a restaurant in New York City and stepped in there and actually took that, I think, over 3 to 4 years to the top restaurant in the world. And what they focused on, I think he was the first, that was the first restaurant to win that award, I believe, that was not chef led. So he wasn't a chef by nature. He was, really more of an experienced person who came in and helped with restaurants. And that's how he showed up there. And that's what they focused on, right? They focused on this like outrageous and exceptional experience, right? Like being like where he said, I think just like they're going to care more about something than anybody else was going to care. And like those kind of like comments were really cool, right? Where it was just like, we're going to think about every experience we have in the restaurant, every client touch point. And we're going to go through each one from the sense of like getting the bill at the table to paying the bill to when they get to the front door to when they leave, and every little piece of that experience all the way through. And you just think about that and all the different touch points that you might have. I don't remember the exact numbers. I wrote an article for American College on this. Maybe I remembered it when I wrote that, but I had it in my notes somewhere. But I think he went to his team and he said, hey, let's think of all the touch points we have when somebody comes in for an experience here for dinner. And I think at first they had like 60 of them, right? They came up with 60 touch points. And then he said, there's more. You got to go harder. And they found like 70, then 80. And I think they ended up with like 120 something different touch points throughout the course of one dinner that you have an ability to elevate the experience. And I thought that was so cool because when you think about it in our world, it's probably even a lot more than that, right? And like, we're always like, oh, client experience, like, onboarding, investment, annual report. And you're like, there's our 3. And it's like, wow, there's probably 500. And we're not thinking through most of these small experience and touch points and putting any real attention to them. And so they did this by just having this outrageous experience. He told a couple different stories in there too. One of the ones that really resonated that showed up in the Bear, he's one of the co-producers of that, was this notion that he had this group that came into New York and they were trying all the different restaurants and their restaurant was last. And they showed up there and he said the service person heard them talking about how great of an experience they've had in New York and they were closing off with this restaurant. And the only thing they regretted though is they didn't have a New York hot dog. So they went to the back and they said this and they ran out to the corner vendor and bought the hot dog and brought back in there. And he's like, and then I had to convince our, top tier chef in the world that I need you to take this crappy New York hot dog and serve it to them. And so like chopped it up in 3, put a little mustard on the plate, took it out. And he said, like, to this day, right, that's the happiest, customers, clients that they've ever had. I mean, it's so much so it even made it into the Bear TV show. But he was like, but you had to be present, you had to be listening, and you had to be willing to do something like risky and outside your comfort zone. But you created this experience. They'll never remember the other stuff they ate. He's like, the only thing they'll ever remember is they went to the top tier restaurant in the world and they went out and they got them a hot dog for like $2, right? He's like, it cost almost nothing. And we created the best experience and the happiest clients we've ever had in the course of the restaurant. He says, so millions of dollars of caviar and champagne, but that $2 New York hot dog is the best experience he ever delivered. And like, I thought that was like super cool, right? Like, and how many opportunities like that we have in our business that we could bring in if we just have that time to be present and listen and react, right, in meaningful and personalized ways to our clients.
So the takeaway here is feed your clients hot dogs.
Yeah. Actually, the takeaway is that you have to be present and listen, right? Because you could have heard that and you could have been like, but like, don't worry about the hot dog. Our food's even better, right? And you could have just sold them on that. And to be honest, right, your food is better than the soggy hot water dog outside, right? Like it is better than the New York hot dog. Like that's okay. But that's not the experience, right? It's not listening to the client that they were going to leave New York without ever having this iconic New York food item. And they brought that to them. And so I thought one of the interesting things is if you're just running all the time, you're not going to be present enough to listen to it and actually react to that client.
It's such a great point. And I think, far too often as advisors, like we're always so focused on like our strategies or our process or our products, right? And those can start to really steer the course of what the agenda, the conversation, to your point, like sometimes, John Del Greco, a partner of ours at C2P would always say, don't ask the question if you don't want to hear the answer. And far too often, we ask the questions because we're trained, it's on our fact finder or whatever, but we're not really sitting there listening and learning and hearing the client. So like, in what ways have you been able to kind of relate this to financial professionals in terms of, how they're trying to really, deliver a truly exceptional client experience?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple different things. And so when you want to get and deliver this truly exceptional client experience, I think in our business, and I'm going to start more on the business side and we'll work back to some of these other, I think, more fun things. But one of the other things he said is it doesn't just mean these one-off things. And you're kind of like, well, how often does somebody walk in my office and be like, man, I really wish I had a hot dog and I've got the ability to run out and get a hot dog. Okay, fine. But he also talked about you can also create exceptional experience around scalable, repeatable items that, right, on their face are not scalable or repeatable, but in fact they are. So he gave an example of how many people get engaged inside of their restaurant. And he's like, but to every person, that is not a scalable item. To each person, right, they're just getting engaged there once. But to you, as a restaurant, it's happening every day. Right. And he's like, so we could actually build a special experience around this that felt totally unique and special to the person. It didn't feel forced because to them, bringing the free champagne out after they get engaged. He's like, that's one thing, but people almost expect that. He's like, when you get engaged in a restaurant, the restaurant should bring you free champagne, right? Like that's just what should happen. He's like, but what we did is we got Tiffany's to make special champagne flutes just for the restaurant, and they'd bring them out in those, but they gave them to him at the end. And he's like, and so it was this great branding for Tiffany's and a great experience for us. And we were able to scale that. So they had a whole closet full of these. And then I was like, wow, think about all this. And we don't really do a great job of this in a scaled manner, although some advisors will do it. Like same thing. I've brought this back to my firm. I said, well, how often do we do these? And it's like, well, some people do them well, but it's not systematic in scale. So it's like when somebody retires, like, what do you do for them? Like it should be some like cool celebratory moment, right? You send them champagne, you send them a congrats, you send them a book. Like what is that experience that you're curating? But we can definitely do that. Like that's a great experience, right? Their kids go to college. Do you buy them a jersey with their name on it from the college and send it to them? That's the one that I've now started talking about is like, we need to learn that one. That's like $120. You can customize every jersey and send them that universe. Like pick those things that occur over and over and over again. But that is completely custom, right? When you go to, well, your kid here in Pennsylvania goes to Penn State because that's our big state school. Like getting a jersey with your name on the back of it when you're going to go there with your kid for whatever game, like that's still super personalized to you. Although it's completely scalable, right? Like it's actually not that hard to do that one. So there's a lot of those small things that are kind of, we can definitely scale. I think even, what is your office setup like? How easy is it to come in? What's that experience when they walk through the door? Does your office have paper stacked up all over it, right? Like I've seen, advisors like that too. There's papers everywhere. I don't know that's the experience you want to give somebody, right? That's like walking in and see like boxes of, ketchup stacked up in the front of the restaurant. Like it doesn't give you that, hey, this is the best restaurant. I'd be like, see a bunch of boxes of ketchup that haven't been put away.
Yeah.
We have one of our offices that bought one of the smell machines, I guess, that Marriott uses right in their lobbies to keep the smell consistent in the office at all times. Like small things like that. Some of the other ones we've instilled is making sure there's always tissues, right? On the client meeting things, always reading glasses, there's always pens, there's always notebooks, there's always water. Those are pretty small things, but all of those little ones, right? Those are all touch points. If somebody can't read, right? If they start crying, you don't have to hand them the tissues. They're already there and available. And so start thinking through all those little experiences and which ones you want to elevate. You don't have to be great at all of them, right? But think about the ones that you want to impact on. And some of them are really scalable.
I love that. And for a lot of these too, like these aren't things that are going to break the bank to go implement either. I mean, everything that you just mentioned could be done on a very limited budget. You're not talking about going and hosting some extravagant event and inviting people and doing, this retreat with clients that's going to cost you a fortune. Like this is the little things that in many cases make a bigger impact. I mean, one of the things that I've shared with our advisors at Allison Wealth, and I shared at every meeting that I teach the bucket plan training at, is just actively listening, but then having processes in your business to follow up. Like one of the things that we do with our clients that they just love is anytime we're doing a meeting with the client and they let us know that they're going to be traveling, I'll ask them, I'll be like, so where are you going? And they'll be like, oh, we're going to Mexico. I'll be like, where are you guys staying? What hotel? And I'm finding that out, and we document that in the notes, and it creates a task for our client service administration team to reach out to the hotel, let them know when our client is checking in, and have a nice bottle of wine or a tray of fruit, something there waiting for them when they arrive. And like, the clients are just blown away. And I don't know, that might maybe cost me $150 bucks, depending on what the markups are going to be at the hotel. But like that little stuff just creates such a unique experience and differentiates you, and it builds the relationship.
Yeah, and it's a really good point. And those small things, we just did one of those funny. It's a little different, but very similar. They said that, hey, it's my birthday this weekend and we're going out to this restaurant. We did the same thing, right? And then I just like asked those additional questions, like, oh, like which one? And then where is it? Okay. And so then, our team reached out, called the restaurant and ordered something for them. And then funny enough, though, they wouldn't take a credit card over the phone. So my EA actually drove down cash to that place to give to them that day. And, actually, had she told me that, I would have said, no, just bag it. But
Yeah,
she,
that's funny.
she just, but that's that like client
What a
service
team
mentality.
player.
She was just like, I'm going to go do it, and just went and drove. And, but I thought that was really cool. And like, yeah, those little things, right? They're worth more. They're worth more than the $100 that you spend on something, right? It's a totally different feeling because people feel heard. And I think that's, they said, what is really client service? It's feeling heard, right? Like, then you feel heard, right? Like where you're staying on vacation, you went that extra mile. It's not the dollar amount. It's that you made them feel heard and seen in that time and space.
I love that, feeling heard. I mean, I could think back to a story about 3 years ago of a client who's now a multi-million dollar client with us. And in my introductory call, he originally asked where I was from, and it was Ohio. And he was in California. So for him, like everywhere in Ohio is kind of the same. He was in Cincinnati, or he had been to Cincinnati. I was in Cleveland. He thinks, thought, Cincinnati
Yeah.
and Cleveland are by each other, even though they're 5 hours apart. But Montgomery Inn was the real famous barbecue place. Have you ever been to Montgomery Inn in Cincinnati and gotten their ribs?
No, I have not. I've been to, what is it, Skyline Chili though? There,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
the other one.
They
Yeah, I've
got the
been
original
there.
skyline there too.
Yeah.
Well, long story short, he's like, "Oh, you're from Ohio. You must love Montgomery Inn. I love their ribs. Like, I'd love to bring my family there one day." So, long story short, I jump on Amazon, and sure enough, for $7.99, I could send him two like liters of Montgomery Inn barbecue sauce. I shipped it out to his house. He ended up the next weekend sending me pictures that he had his whole family
Mhm.
over, and they did a big cookout from his new financial advisor,
Yeah.
and ended up, of course, hiring us. But to your point, people felt heard, and then it was a nice little touch. And with Amazon Prime, I think the whole thing cost me less than $9 all in. So I
Yeah.
think, those are just great examples that hopefully other advisors and their teams can really help deploy in businesses. But again, it all starts with active listening.
Yeah, I think it's pretty funny. So you brought up Cincinnati. This was not planned, so this is pretty cool. So one of my best client, like from me experiencing something as a client, occurred in Cincinnati. I was doing a speaking event there, and I shifted to a second hotel. And I forget what happened that day, but I didn't have a good end of the day. And I got to the second hotel, and the person at the front desk was just like, "Hey, Mr. Hopkins, welcome." It was a Marriott, and I just kind of said, "Yeah, it's been a rough day." Um, and they went out and bought a 6-pack of beer for me and brought it up to the room later. Funny enough, I don't really drink beer, so like it was still super nice, but they have that
Yeah.
whole Rhinegeist area of Cincinnati. So they went and got like 6 local beers and brought them up to me. Made perfect sense, right? I'm like a 30-year-old guy at that point, and like they brought me beer, and I was like, "Oh, this is great." And I didn't end up drinking them, but it was still like super nice, right? Like it just was like this, "Hey, you're having not the best day. Here's some local beers from these breweries that we have near here." And yeah, like I remember that to this day. And that's why, I'll be a Marriott forever because of those 6 beers they brought me that I didn't drink.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bucket Plan on Demand, brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Subscribe today for the latest episodes and insights. Visit c2penterprises.com to learn how we can help support and enhance your advisory business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.